Hey everyone, welcome back to Electrolysis Unplugged, the after-hours chat for all things electrology. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Joanie. We're so excited you're here for today's conversation. Whether you're a student, newly licensed, or years into your practice, today's episode is one you'll want to stick around for.
Absolutely. This week we are diving into what it really takes to build your business in this field, from tricks the seasoned electrologists swear by, to how to price your services when you're just getting started, to market yourself without feeling like you're bragging.
And don't worry, we're also sharing our favorite tools, tips for aftercare, business cards, and the stuff we really wish somebody had told us when we started out.
Let's get into it.
Welcome, everybody, to another week of Mentorship Hour. We kind of got, we had a lot going on last week as far as materials that we wanted to get through, and we just got through a portion of it. So this week, we're going to just keep it going, right? So we have some of the extra material that we just couldn't get to last week because we were having so much fun. And so that's on today's agenda. So last week, just to recap, we were starting to talk about business and building confidence and credibility in your practice. And so some little tricks as to how it is that, new electrologists, especially coming into the field, can incorporate some things that kind of gives their office, their professionalism themselves, just a more elevated look, right? So we talked a little bit about the atmosphere of the treatment bed and yourself also. We talked a little bit about forms, like things like having some nice branded intake forms, whether that's an intake form, a consultation form, or if it's electronic, that was that too. What else did we go through?
Really, it was like, how do you show up? How do you want to present yourself in the world of electrology, and how you want to be hired? I mean, like, that was a big takeaway. I think it was so funny when we got off the call last week. Joanne and I tend to message afterwards and like, either, oh, we should have done this, or, oh, we did such a great job. Like, we're all like high-fiving each other, or like, okay, that's the next week topic. And afterwards it's like, oh, we didn't realize we had that much to say on a topic. And it's, I would definitely say that there is a lot in starting a business, and even reinventing yourself. And there's a lot of inner work that you need to do, finding value in yourself, finding value in the craft that you're going into, being able to kind of envision. I tell my students, even when they are going to work for somebody else, creating a business plan does not have to mean that you're going to own a business. It means it's how you want to show up in those spaces. But that designing of who you are as a person, it can look one way and it can morph over the years. It's like Stephanie 2.0 to Stephanie 5.0. I mean, it gets to be a point where it's, which model of the iPhone am I on this year, right? And it is a feeling of what is the worth that I'm bringing into that space. And so I think that last week kind of set the tone of maybe more of the physical, the aesthetic, the environmental, the branded look. And I feel like this week we're kind of diving more a little bit into that, the value, perceived value, and just how to see yourself in spaces where you don't quite feel glamorous yet. You feel like you're still rough around the edges. And I can say this with full confidence. And this is because even though I've been at this for such a long time, starting my own business and having the school, I lacked confidence in that space. Even though I've been a teacher for a long time, even though I have had people for over the years tell me that they enjoy the way I teach, and that kind of stuff, going into that space when you're so raw can be scary. And you sometimes have to have cheerleaders in that moment telling you that you are worth those sacrifices.
Couldn't you argue too that if you're not feeling a little bit of trepidation when you're entering these new avenues of your career, your life, have you really understood what you're doing?
No.
Right?
I could absolutely argue that.
A little bit of fear, a little bit of, oh God, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to be able to do that? Do you really understand what you're undertaking? Because I think that every time we do something new, and this could be, maybe you've been an employee for, you're an electrologist, you're not new in the field, but you've been an employee for 20 years and you decide that you just now want to go open up your own business. It's not so much that you don't know what you're doing, but you're going in a whole new direction. If you don't have just a healthy amount of fear in undertaking this, I'm not saying that you're going to fail or you're going to do anything bad or that you don't know what you need to do. You've thought it through, but taking the risk is always going to be, just a little bit nerve-wracking. And I think that it's normal and it's healthy. If you're not scared of it, I worry.
Yeah, I think that is the thing. Like, there is a level of like, yes, of course, we'll tell you guys, like, when you first start out, like, there's a level of fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah, but fake it till you make it.
That's to other people,
That's
not
the
to yourself.
superficial. It's
Yeah.
a superficial thing, right? So you're portraying something, but how you're feeling underneath is what we're really talking about, right? So we're talking about how are we going to be portraying ourselves up until the underneath person catches up and realizes that, okay, I can do this,
Oh, yeah.
Eileen dropped in the comment, she goes, like opening a school. And if Eileen opened a school, and she's not new to the field. And not just that, but you've been exposed because your mom was an electrologist forever. So it's not like any of this was new, but you took a complete, I wouldn't say complete 180. I mean, it's a branch of the tree. The tree is electrology, kind of went down the road of opening a school, but it's a lot of work. It's you're entering a world with a lot of just legislation and rules and departments and things that you have to follow that is not, something that's common for just a regular practice.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. It is it's a lot to start to organize what that path should look like for yourself. But and it's something that's good to take time on. I mean,
well, that's what the business plan's for. It's so even if you're in business, but you want to, let's say, like, again, the 20 years in electrologist that has been an employee and wants to open their own business, do a business plan. You want to open a school, do a business plan. You're fresh out of school, you want to go and work for somebody else, still do a business plan, because it helps a lot to give you clarity as to what the next steps are. And I think that's knowing the path helps, at least the steps, it helps a lot to give you the confidence that you might not have. There's nothing worse than being in front. You want to do this. You're like, okay, now what do I do? Now where do I go? Where do I get this? Where do I get that? Like, you need to have these things researched for sure.
Makes you think of like people who would get a tattoo on the Vegas Strip, like those like $20 walk-in tattoo things, and people who think about like an image for a long time. They're like, okay, I'm ready to go embark on this big project, and it's like those are forever things, right? Well, forever until you have a tattoo removed, right? But just like what we're doing here, it's like you can jump the gun and like try to like set up things really quickly and not really structure it, and then have to revisit that and be like, oh, do I need to cover that up? do I need to stand up on that?
Yeah. Do you want to do things 5 times, or do you want to try to do it right the first time? Not that you won't make mistakes and your plan changes and your vision changes, but yeah, try to be as prepared as possible. What kicked off this whole thing was the question that was submitted. How do I charge full price when I feel like I'm not ready? So this is from the vantage point of somebody who's fairly new, and they feel like maybe their work isn't on par with the price that they're charging, which would be the going rate for whatever area they're in, right?
I think that is to get people on the table, right? And so people are like, you think it's hard to get people on the table. It is about like how you apply yourself in those spaces. So like, we've all been there. Every person that is on this call, unless you have not started as a practitioner yet, right? You have had that moment where you're like, well, how am I going to price this? What am I doing right there? How am I going to have the confidence to like make sure that people stay on the table, right? You build that by doing it. It is, and I know I say this a lot, but it is the reps that you put in. If you are someone that likes to like work out or go for a walk or whatever, let's say go for a walk. You don't walk 5 miles starting. You start off with, I'm going to walk 5 minutes today. I'm going to walk 15 minutes next week. You build it over time, and you're building that confidence on your muscle memory in that space, right? It's not like you're building it in this space, but you have to do the reps of getting that, like showing up the way you want to show up, using the same voice to get your message out there. Even if it's repetition, right? It's a good thing. That's what's going to get you that confidence. Being able to practice your consultation 1 billion times so that when somebody throws something at you guys, like you're like, oh my gosh, what on earth? How am I going to answer this? Right? Think about all the things, especially many of us have been electrology patients. Think about what you wanted to see in your electrologist when you hired them and see if that's something that you can apply to yourself. So that in that space because remember, that vibe attracts your tribe, right? So like when we think about like, if I came to this electrologist, something put me into their chair, right? It might have been convenience. And convenience can be something that builds confidence too, but it could be convenience. But I feel like it's like, you're pulling in somebody that mirrors something they can see within themselves to invest that time and effort into your schedule. And so you have to nurture that side of yourself and build the strength to continue to show up as that person, as you, unapologetically.
When we're talking about pricing too, there's a little bit of pricing psychology that goes into it. While you don't feel like you might be worth the going rate, it's important not to price yourself too cheap, because there's also, it doesn't really make you look humble. It actually just makes it look like there's something wrong. So from the client's perspective, when they're looking around and they are looking at prices and they're going to be looking at a few electrologists in the area, it's always good if you're newer to rate yourself maybe on the lower end of the pack, but you never want to be so far out of the pack that you look like there's something wrong. So the clients will sometimes think like, why is this so cheap? What's the catch? So we want to be careful there too.
Oh yeah. I mean, a Groupon to bring somebody in is fine. If you're doing it for every session and you're honoring that for every session, the value was never there. That was never at the place that you wanted it to be, because you're willing to say that, like, I'm only worth the discount, the coupon, right? And I'm not saying that coupons aren't important. I mean, heck, I use them, right? But it's important to then note that, like, you are worth your worth. There was a comment in here from Michaela. She had a hard time with pricing when she first started because her mother-in-law had been doing it for 30 years and says she worked a lot slower than her. And she was always afraid that someone would complain that you didn't get as much done, right? It's so funny because I know that myself, Joanie, Eileen, like, we're all daughters of electrologists, right? Or we've all had someone very close in our lives that we had to work in the same practice. And you had to, when you first started, you felt like you had to live up to them, right? I remember saying to my mom, I'm like, how am I ever going to be like you? And she goes, you can't be like me, you have to be like you. And I was like, okay. But in that same token, patients don't really know the speed at which something should be done. They know the accuracy that they want done by it, right? And your speed, when you first start out, yes, you're going to be slow when you don't have any patients, you don't have that reps getting done, that practice. When you first start out, the way you build that speed when you're nervous about that is every time there's a gap in the schedule, even if all you have is 5 hairs, you practice that insertion, right? And I wouldn't do it with heat if you only have 5 hairs, full transparency. But like, I would say that it is important to keep going back to that, because I know that the complaints suck. Like, they don't feel good. But I also know that there were times that I had someone on my table. They're like, hey, can I stay on your table? I'm really enjoying how you do this. And they were my mom's client. And I was like, well. Like,
I noticed the same thing. And I think that there's always clients for everybody. In my office, I think we're a good amount of electrologists, and clients will gravitate to somebody and they tend to stick to the same person. So even if you're working with somebody else, and let's say you do the consultation, this client might just stick to your schedule and never even go into your mom's schedule, right? And so then they wouldn't know what to compare it to. And another thing is, if you work by yourself, clients might not have anything to compare it to. So when they come in to see you, and if they've never had electrolysis before, then they don't know anything else. So how do they know that you're going slow versus what's really expected? They don't. So I wouldn't make a big fuss about it. I think that new technicians need to concentrate on the accuracy of their work and the quality of their insertions over trying to just mow through areas, because that's where you start to compromise the quality of your work And then honestly, the client's the loser at this point, so we have to be careful there. Another thing is that I noticed, and you kind of brought it up, is that even if my mom and I's skills now are more on par, we're two different people, two different personalities, two different approaches to clients. And so what I've noticed is some clients will gravitate towards her more and others towards me. No hard feelings, but that's just kind of what happens, And so even in an office, maybe you work slower than someone else, but they like you because of whatever conversation, your personality meshes. It's all, it's all chemistry. It's organic at this point. So you have to think about that too. When you're picking, when a client picks you as an electrologist, sometimes if they have the choice, at least they can afford to pick somebody that maybe they just have better chemistry with versus somebody else, even if that person maybe works a little bit faster or whatever else, because they like you better.
About probably less than 10 years ago, we had a patient or client at that time that was coming in for cosmetic electrolysis. And we had at the time 5 technicians, including myself. Okay. So they had been to 4 other people before hitting my table. Okay. And they complained each person they didn't like. Okay. And then finally, when they got to me, I just had a come to Jesus moment where I was like, listen, you have currently been to 4 other technicians, including my mother, of which you've now had like something that you didn't like about each person. And I'm the last stop in this office. So if you don't like what I do for you, I am.
There's the door.
I'm like, literally, I'm fully okay with sending you to a colleague. I'm fully okay with it. We don't need to be the place for you. And it can tell, it tells a lot to me. And they might not trust me because of their own issues, right? It might
exactly. I was going to say, might not have anything to do with you.
It has nothing to do with Stephanie, right? You didn't know me enough to have a trust issue with me. But you came into this not trusting the process. And so every person that didn't deliver the process the way your mind perceived it was not of value in that moment, right? And so you had a complaint. So at what point is that going to stop?
I saw this. It was actually a post on Facebook, so some of you might have seen it, but there was a newer electrologist that had posted about how she was having a hard time because some of the clients that she had since she opened, her newest clients, had stopped coming, just ghosted her. And it really hurt her feelings. And so, I understand that, you maybe get a little bit attached, maybe because she's newer, maybe because it's your first clients, but it's it's important to understand that down in its roots, this is a business relationship. And so on both sides of things, you have to be careful with putting a little bit too much emotion or attachment into that relationship, because the truth is that clients will leave, and they're not going to ask your permission sometimes. They're just going to go. And in the other end, you have to be okay also with letting some of these people go. If it's not going to be a good fit and you can kind of tell, you might be saving yourself some trouble by just saying, maybe I'm not the place for you. This episode is sponsored by Silhouette Tone, a global leader in electrolysis equipment and aesthetic technology. From advanced epilators to full spa solutions, Silhouette Tone empowers professionals to deliver safe, effective treatments with innovation at every step. Discover their electrolysis equipment and more at silhouettetone.us.
When you think about because in the chat, there are people I forgot who posted it, they're paying, Eileen, they're much less than the person's charging much less than everybody else by 30% of a discount. Another one who's charging double for people from hips to feet. And part of that is she's trying to price probably people out of her schedule. I don't want to do that area, so I'm just going to make it double.
Yeah, that's what that sounds like.
I'm that's not I see
make
that
it unattractive as opposed to just saying I just don't want to do this, which is okay too.
No is a full and complete sentence. And when I think about okay, so 30% discount tells me that one, that person lacks confidence in their skill, okay, or they lack confidence in being able to connect with the people on the table, so they're going to do it through a financial means, right? They don't like
To
them.
be fair though, I do have my newest, the ones that are fresh out of school, are 25% discounted for the first 6 months that they work for me. So
That's different though. That's like you're putting a timeline to
oh
it.
yeah, of course. And then after that, it's gone. But it's like as you cut your teeth in this and just kind of get used to managing a schedule and keeping on time and seeing different cases and different things, you're kind of, you're at a discount. And there's clients that are seeking that out. They want, you want the cheap electrolysis, I have an option for you. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's not forever.
Like, don't you feel like really it's really hard to raise your rates if you don't put a timeline on that?
Oh, you have to. And that's the thing. And that's the next thing. If you're I always recommend that new students, if you have this particular worry, like I can't charge $120 an hour. I'm not fast enough. I'm not good enough. I'm new at this. I understand. And so that's usually my recommendation. I like to phrase it as like, especially if you're opening your own business, it's different when you're an employee in my business, but if you're opening your own business, I just phrase it as a grand opening discount.
Yep.
You always put an end date. So you charge, your advertised rates are the rates that are the going rate, the rate that you mean to charge. So if you were, like being realistic, but like if you were to charge what you want to charge, 120 an hour, for example, then that's what you're posting online. And then you just have a grand opening discount for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever you feel comfortable with. But there is an end date. And at that end date, it just poof, it goes away. It's really hard if you start low. Like I feel like I'm only worth $60 an hour. But then after that, you mean to go to 120, you can't double your rates in a jump like this. And so it's difficult to move up, to raise your rates if you're starting off too low. And if you start off too high, it's the same thing too.
When people ask for my
yourself,
schedule,
it doesn't work.
When people ask for my schedule next to the Zapplings, it's kind of funny. I'm like, oh, you're paying for my hand therapies. You're paying for my gym membership. You're paying for my massage therapist. I'm just saying, I'm like, that price is there because homegirl cannot hang anymore. Go to the babies.
Well, yeah. And I think, they pay for your experience and that's worth something. I think, yeah, you just have to be careful. People that are too new and also charging a lot, it's just, you kind of have to put in your blood, sweat, and tears like everybody else. You don't want to outprice yourself because if you are raising your rates as you should be, then you're not going to be able to. There's going to be a point where you've outstripped everybody else, and then you're going to start losing business as a consequence.
One of the things I wrote this down so I didn't forget it, to try, I'm a newly licensed electrologist or newly certified. I'm currently refining my speed. My technique is consistent of my peers. And I'm focused on delivering a safe and effective treatment. And so this price is here for this time being while I'm working on that refining of my speed, but it goes up to this price by then.
Yep. Another good one is I'm offering a temporary introductory rate while I grow my practice. You're new. So we're trying to fill your books. And they're the lucky ones to be able to take advantage of that because they're in the right place at the right time. So no, I don't even remember it ever being the case because I don't remember what my mom had the office price as when I was a young technician. But I remember I had a woman say to me, I remember when you were only $15 for 15 minutes. And this was maybe 3 years ago. And I was like, oh, how much was a house costing at that point? And I just said it like that. And it was just I don't know. I mean, yeah, in 2004, I was that price, but we're not in 2004 anymore. When I started, I was $55 an hour. Yeah, me too. But actually, even before that, you might freak out. But the first 2 months that I was in business, I had a couple clients and I was going to their house. Don't do this because you can't. But I was going to their house with my massage bed and my lamp and everything. And it was $25 an hour. I think it was summer. And I was just I had a couple people just to try it out to get going. So she's like, I'm going to make money. I'm just, yeah. Well, I was 17 years old. I'm like, I can do this, so, but yeah, don't do that. No, today I was, the 55 an hour. I think that was kind of on par with what it cost. That was 20 somewhat years ago, 22 years ago. That was kind of the rate. And then it was 60, 65, 70, 75. And it just kind of went up and up and up and up until, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there was a big jump maybe like 10 years ago when there was a big change in the pricing. And it was just like, guys, we've been underpriced for so long that like everything else around us has gone up. And like people are asking like, well, what are there other discounts? And I'm like, you don't understand. Most of our stuff is, it is well.
COVID, right? I mean, it was right
COVID,
around that time our gloves tripled in price. You couldn't find alcohol. I had to source alcohol from a manufacturing company. It came on a freaking crate. That a jug of alcohol was like gold, so it was difficult. After that, it was like, nope, got to raise, unfortunately.
Yeah. I went to Sally's and accidentally bought cherry alcohol because I didn't realize it was scented because I was wearing a mask all the time during COVID. Right. So that was like swiping across someone's upper lip and they're like, that smells funny. And I was like, it's alcohol. And she's like, no, it has like a smell. And so I like finally I whip it off. I smell it. I'm like, oh, I've been doing this to everybody's faces. So yeah, that's a little rough. I think as long as you're like that confidence, like working on that, clients are going to see that like you have that firm that firm boundary of what you're doing as you're kicking off. And they're just gonna be like, okay, cool. This person's got this. Oh, I love this. Laura says, I just made a flyer that has a discounted consultation and a 15-minute sample treatment. The first session is 50% off. The second session is 25% off. And my rates are solid until 6 months from now. And then it will change once I hit my year from graduation. That is cool. I love
it. It takes a good year, I think, if you're consistent, meaning that like this is going to be your primary job. So you're not doing it 5 hours every week or something like that. I think it takes a good year. And once you've hit your 1 year, I think that you're pretty confident in your skill. You've done enough treatments, you've seen enough clients that you're like, okay, I get this. And now you can really start, progressing in the field. Yeah. But that in between that, the first 6 months, it's pretty shaky. And then usually when my employees get to about 6 months and they've got at minimum, 20 hours of electrolysis a week. So they're usually 20 to 35 hours of work. So
like epilation
time. Busy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're pretty busy. So it's, 6 months, they're ready to get rid of the discount. They feel confident, which is kind of where I want them. And then once they've hit the year, like we're ready to move up. And usually rates are increasing every year after that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm trying to think of like the next thing we're going to talk about. What about like, how do you feel like professionalism shows up in these spaces? I mean, obviously we're talking about confidence, but there is a professional nature that we have to do when we're a business owner or an employee in a business space.
I think that it's important for it to be clear.
Yeah.
So no wishy-washiness, post your rates. I've never been a fan of the call me for the rate stuff. Like I understand why people do it. They want to have the client call so you can have that initial conversation to try to convince them to come in. But I think that if people are calling or are even researching for this, they know what it is because it's niche, right? They really have to be digging for it. It's not advertised in their faces like laser. So they really know that that's probably the direction they want to go. And so when they're calling, they tend to be pretty serious. Or when they're on your website, they're serious. So I think that it's more professional if you have your rates posted, just like Laura was talking about, this flyer. I think it's great. Well-designed flyer that shows what the discounts are. The phrasing that you use is all professional. I think that it shows you as a real business, right? You don't want to look like you're running this out of your garage. You want to look like you're running like a real enterprise, right? So I think that starts there for sure.
Yeah, because Eileen, you just said your vocabulary, using technical words in consultations.
Mm-hmm.
Know what lie is. Know what alternating current and direct current. Be able to decipher between the two. Understand what happens when you add in heat to a chemical composition, and be able to describe why people go back and forth between modalities. Speak confidently and clearly on those modalities, and not in favoritism. I would say in your favoritism of a modality, but not like, oh, this one's better than that one, because that leads to a lack of professionalism when we start like bad mouthing other people's techniques, whether that be like one hand versus two hand, the modalities, the filaments, the machines. like, it doesn't have to be like, I'm superior because of these items. It's your knowledge is the superior part of it, in the sense of all of that time you took in your education, use it. When you talked about clear website, you should be able to go to your website and know what you do. I feel like many of us cannot afford a professional photographer when we first kick off, but you have high school kids in your town with photo classes that they got to do. You have somebody in your household or in your group of friends that can hold your cell phone and take nice, because cell phone pictures now are good enough in the starting point that can take pictures of you, clean up your space that you're in, make it look staged, like as if you were trying to sell a home, but you're trying to sell hair removal, right? It should look like that on there. When it comes to that whole like getting them to come in on the consultation, on that call, like on the pricing, it was so funny. There was somebody that was irritated that we listed our prices online years ago because they were like, oh, well, people expect me to do that and somebody's going to steal my pricing. And I'm like,
steal your pricing? I'm like, lady,
this is generally standardized.
I didn't know it was intellectual property.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I mean, that was my $55 quote. I mean, like, come on now. So you got to make sure that you are, oh, that is Celeste. That's
exactly it right there.
I didn't call anybody that didn't have prices on their website, because it seems in my eyes as a consumer, if I don't see your prices out there, I know that you're like either not confident in what you're doing. Okay. Or you're trying to be a little bit shady for me. Like in my head, I know that that's not the case for everybody. And I know that when somebody's listening in mentorship hour, they're gonna be like, Stephanie called me shady. I'm not, like, just understand. I'm just saying that there is a perception that happens.
Well, to be fair, there's also the situation where, like, have you ever tried to book an appointment somewhere? And if it says, like, if I can't book it online, or it says like, call for appointment, I'm like, nope, done. Already, I'm already over it.
For consultations.
Yes.
And once we went to like the insurance, I had to take off. Once we went to insurance-based care, we had to take off the online booking feature, because we had people that had no idea how to book their medical electrolysis. And so it's like, call for a consult. And it stinks that I had to do that, because I also don't like that. Like when she just said that, I'm like, oh, no, I want to be able to have that online booking. But you have enough people that they're booking by units versus by time. And they're like, well, I don't know how much a unit is, even if I train them to know what it is. And so then all of a sudden they were booking obscure timings or the whole day, because they were assuming that they had a really bad hair problem and they really had like a 15-minute problem. And I was like, okay, well, no, we're not here today.
So I think that it's really important to think about how the website ends up portraying our image, and I think that we need to be transparent and we need to be clear. The words that you use on the website needs to be informative without being heavy. So sometimes, I have an assignment at the school where students have to do a website. And if they do a website, sometimes they're really text heavy, or I don't even know what they're doing because it doesn't even mention electrolysis in there. So it's like, you have to kind of find the balance between the two, but something that looks professional. You talked about having, professional photography might be a little bit difficult, but a kid with an iPhone does a good job. So it all kind of comes down to that. I think that it goes a long way. They do. Yeah. They grew up with a phone in their hands, but it goes a long way to creating that professional look that clients can sense, that clients can see, even if you're brand new, right? So that's kind of the whole point.
I mean, that the look of the professional is the tools, the treatment room, I mean, obviously we talked about branding last go around, but it's like, it kind of just reinforces like your sterile environment, your like care precision, so I think that that's really important.
Sure.
I know that we talked about this before about kind of giving them a little bit of homework, but not really homework per se, but in the chat, where do we put that? What was
the Q&A? So some of the listener Q&A.
Yeah. So, okay. We wanted you guys to do 3 affirmations about your value as a provider, and put them in you can put them in the chat here, but in the community, or in the comment sections and that kind of stuff. And I want you to say them before your next client. Like, what do you see in yourself that is important? Recently, we just got an affirmations book at the front desk, and my friend is now working my front office, and she brought in this affirmation book, and when people have had like a rough session, she goes, okay, pick a number 1 through 26. And there's 26 affirmations in there. And then she reads off the affirmation of the day. And there is this like, last week we had somebody that just was like, oh my God, that was awesome. And it was, and it's a small thing that makes a big impact, but it's like looking in the mirror and saying like, I am worthy. I am, that kind of stuff. And I think that might be like a good point to do. We'd love to see it.
So hopefully you guys can drop some in there. We've got another 20 minutes or so. So hopefully that's enough time to get a little bit of your input on there.
It sure was our content on the Rise program last week, Eileen. I saw that. I was like, ooh, we're going to make this a steady thing for everybody. I also think it's kind of cool. Like when you first start out, when you hit wins with your clients, whatever that is, okay, they got to put down the tweezers in between sessions. They should have been doing that to begin with, but they finally got the courage to do it, right? Or I would say, they were able to hydrate prior to session, or they've been using their pre and post care products, and you've been able to connect with them in that space. It could also be like, my client has not shaved in a whole month. Like, those wins add up to your wins as a technician.
Yeah.
So
I always laugh when sometimes you get pleasantly surprised with the progress. I'm very invested in the client's progress, sometimes more than they are. And so when a client lays down and I look at the area and I notice that there's, the density is so much less, the hairs are so much smaller, it's so much more sparse, the skin looks good, like pigmentation evens out, right? All these things that you look for. So sometimes I'll be like, oh, your face, it looks so good. And, it's moving along and this and that. And so they're always like, well, thanks to your good work. And I don't think about it this way, but it's just like, yeah, it's good because it means that what I'm doing is correct. What I'm doing is helping, and so sometimes it's nice to be able to get that feedback. And honestly, you see it. It's very obvious. So you see it yourself, which is great.
So
there was a question it was a listener Q&A. So what is one thing you wish you had invested in sooner? This season, Electrolysis Unplugged is spotlighting our groundbreaking research project. We're working to bring legitimacy, data, and recognition back to electrology. If you're a practitioner ready to contribute detailed charting and client outcomes, or a student interested in learning the process, visit electrologycoalition.com, look under research, and get involved today. Together, we're writing the future of electrolysis.
for me, it was my hand health that I talked about last week. But I think it was my loops. I didn't have loops until about 3 years in, like custom ones where they fit to my eyeballs.
You did better than me. I didn't have them until I think it was at least 7 to 10 years in.
It could
messed
be
up my neck real good. That was fun.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah. It's going from the mag lamp and readers to loops was
game
changer. And I do feel like it was something that kind of gave my hands the by and by to be healthier for a little bit longer, because I wasn't trying to struggle to stretch harder and that kind of stuff. You have to firm grasp, but at the same time it doesn't have to be strenuous. So I think that those are my two. What about you? I mean,
I definitely I did this twice already, but investing in some more professional photography. I think that if you look at stock photos of electrolysis, most of it, not all of it, but most of it is pretty bad. you can tell it's done by people that don't know the field because they're doing insertions in the wrong direction. And so when I see people use these photos on websites, I know where they're coming from. And I understand that it's because there's not a lot out there for electrologists to use. But it's like they're working on the leg and you know which direction the leg hair grows, but then they're doing the insertion the other way. And so that kind of stuff. So I think that investing in like photography, just whether it's, somebody that's really good with a cell phone or having a company there was really nice because I ended up with a lot of material that I could use on my website, in my social media, and all these different places. And sometimes it was just a couple hours of me staging, and then I could use this for a whole year or more, really, depending. So you have all this material, and then after that, you can use it for a long time. So I think that was great, and I think that it helped with the professionalism of my business. And then the customers, they see this and it makes them feel a little bit more trust towards you. So it all kind of works into itself.
It's funny that you say photography in that manner, though, because I've always been someone that it's not that I don't see. For a long time, I struggled with like body dysmorphia, like not seeing who I wanted to see in the mirror. And sometimes it was like I had no idea how to take pictures of myself. Like I had no idea how to like pose. I mean, I was a ballet kid, but like I didn't know how to pose myself for a photo.
You just get real awkward.
Yeah. And I still do it. Like you'll see, like if I kind of like have those little moments, I'm like kind of goofy in a picture. It's because in that moment, I didn't really know what to do. So you got the weirdest version of me because that apparently is like what is necessary in that moment. Right. But the first time I had someone take a professional work photo of me, they posed me in the most awkward positioning. And of course I was in black shirt, blue jeans. Okay. I did my own makeup. When I look back at the pictures, it was before I had my permanent makeup for my eyebrows. And so I had blocked in my own eyebrows. Oh my God, it was so bad. Okay. I had blocked in my own eyebrows. They were like giant to like make up for all the stuff I'd taken out over the years. And they posed me and I got this picture back and I was like, ooh, is this model going on my website? She's going to get hired. Like, it was so motivating. And like all of a sudden, I think it was like one of those first times I was like, oh my God, I am beautiful. And I would definitely hire me in this moment. I'm so fun to look at. It was like a hype moment. And I think that like, there's a part of that. Like sometimes we don't see like why we would hire ourselves because nobody has showed us through their eyes. Cause like, we're not nice to ourselves online a lot of times. I mean, this is why social media is what it is. Right. So like having somebody like put you in a space that does like showcase that gives you the confidence when you're standing in front of somebody to be like, I'm going to talk to you about hair removal because I look amazing doing so. And look how hairless I am and that kind of stuff. And I think it's important. I am loving the affirmations in the chat. I don't know if you're seeing this, but woo, I'm like, I love it.
No, it's great.
I'm trying to see where my notes left off. Oh my goodness.
Well, we had a second question. So here's another one. What keeps you going on the hard days?
Okay. Just because yesterday was Trans Day of Visibility. Okay. And you guys will see this if you go onto my online post, but it is such a true statement. Being able to show somebody the authenticity I got to see before they got to see it, see themselves for the first time. I think like the lives that we get to change behind that, so many of our patients with PCOS, going through gender affirming care, they might be like moms re-entering the workforce after being stay-at-home moms for a long time and not necessarily interacting with other adults, right? We talk to our kids much differently than other adults. It is a thing. And so like those moments and being able to have them kind of come back to life or be living for the first time because the hair is gone and that's all they could see. That is better than any cup of coffee I will ever have. It really does give me like energy and it gives me hope. And I think that our line of work is very unique to help somebody see that for the very first time. So that's like, I would say that's the top.
I mean, the people, the relationships, I think that that's a huge part of it. I definitely think that if you don't like people, you're probably not in the right line of work. You're going to be working with people.
Yeah.
But I've had clients cry tears of relief, especially like once they get past the point, if the hair was such um, a ingrained part of their identity, not in a good way, that sometimes when you get to a point where they realize that they haven't had to stress about it, they haven't even thought about it. There's a question that I ask, and I know that a client's kind of crossed that bridge when they come in and I go, how was the hair this week? Did it bother you? Because I want to know in between how much of an issue it was. It helps with scheduling, right? So how was it this week? And then sometimes I'll give this answer and they go, you know what? I didn't even think about it. I said, and that's the person that in the beginning couldn't even, leave the house without making sure that they had shaved right before they left, right? Can't had the purse tweezers and the whatever else. And so that's a great moment, when you know that you've pretty much gotten that gray cloud that followed them around all the time is just gone. And sometimes they don't even realize it until they kind of, I don't even think about it, which is great. They go on vacation and they don't bring a razor. They don't bring a tweezer because they don't have to think about it, right? So all of these little wins along the way are great.
It's so funny when you say they didn't bring a tweezer. Okay, so our razor, I should say. Every electrology conference, I have been to a point where you cannot see hair on my face unless you have loops for years, with the exception of this couple that popped in the last couple of years from just hormone changes. But when I say a couple, I used to be covered, right? But every electrology conference, I always put an electric razor in my bag. And you guys, you can actually ask me the next electrology conference if it's in there. I will flat out show you. And it's because I don't know what it is, but I'm like in a room full of hair removal experts. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be the day. And be like,
X-ray vision.
it.
Yeah.
And I mean, the last conference I was doing hair removal on everybody else, and that was kind of cracking me up. I was like, oh, we're all like this. Okay, I can tell you guys. And a couple weeks, I want to say a week ago, I had somebody reach out, and you guys will, if you guys are on like TikTok and Instagram, like you'll see on my page that I do a lot of like responding to comments, and I don't respond in the DMs. I respond publicly because they're not the only person that has that question, but I keep it, well, HIPAA, I keep it like very, even if they're not my patient. And so I shave my face with my little electric razor, which I have like right here, right? I didn't have a little lipstick one on the TikTok. And I was like, this is what it's like. And then like later on, I was showing the students, I was like, yeah, no, I don't really have like long hair, but like if I want to take them down, it's something that's not going to stop me, but I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to think about that. I keep it as like that, like emergency one. If I have a spaz moment where I'm just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But like, that's it.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, those moments are great when clients can be, they realize that they're done and then you realize that you've done such a service. I think it's great.
Oh, so good.
So let's talk a little bit about visibility. So you don't really need a marketing degree, but what you do need is a plan, right? So we've talked a little bit about the business plan, and one part of the business plan definitely is what your marketing plan is. So where do you start?
So as of right now, this is my first full year doing this because last year, Joanie and I were having a conversation and she's like, have you tried using Chat GPT? And I was like, no, I haven't done that. And this is not a plug for Chat. So understand that I don't get paid to say this kind of stuff. But the mental load of trying to come up with new content all the time was really messing me up. Okay. And I started kind of building my calendar year and then what the focus of each month was going to be on in that time frame. And I started building not the month of posts, but looking really ahead. And I think that for my marketing, I really work to incorporate things like Canva for branding and Chat for like at least giving me a calendar. Sometimes I can go in there and it's like, okay, these are the things I want to say this month about it. And it will give me basically small content posts. When it's stuff that's like going to take too much emotional labor, you will see me use that. There's still very much that I will, give it my own Stephanie version of something. without the cleaned up version. But that's usually like the goofy TikToks that you see me do, because that's on the fly, right? But if it's something that I have to structure and I'm able to auto post it and that kind of stuff, I don't have a marketing person. I have a chat GPT.
Oh, I mean, at this point, yeah, it's amazing the stuff that you can do with this. It will write you blogs. It will draft even like I with social media. I'm not a huge fan because I find it tedious. But if you have a photo, which let's say you did a day of staging with somebody that's good enough with a camera, you have good lighting, you're looking good enough, right? So you do your staging, and then after that, you just have AI come up with all of the text to go underneath, the hashtags to go with it, the emojis you want to put in it. You either you schedule all these posts, or you go on and post it on whatever schedule you think you should be doing it. And I mean, it just makes everything so much easier. It's amazing. Amazing.
I mean, when I went to find my brand, and actually when I helped my parents with like updating their brand for Senza, a lot of that stuff, I use things like Fiverr. I use things like where I was outsourcing small gig work, like their jingle.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to create a jingle, right? You're not sure as heck not going to hear me sing it, not intentionally, but like, but
No.
next week on Electrolysis Unplugged. But like, I would say that those are things that I did use at that time. Now you can find them. I mean, not that Fiverr's not nice, not that, but if I can find somebody at like the community college down the street or a high schooler in those spaces that is trying to like build their
portfolio.
Thank you. I'm like, what's that word? Like the thing that goes like this. So the portfolio, or be able to pay them a little bit, like in small batches. I'm so down for that. So, I mean, your message definitely, it needs to be clear and consistent, but you can keep that, I think, easily by doing just that.
Consistency is key. I think that you should try to post once a month, more often. I think that you can match this to how much you have time for it. Not everybody's going to be on social media, loving to do all these posts. But again, there's resources nowadays, especially with AI, that make it so much easier for you to come up with the content. You can plan it out. And after that, the only thing you need to do is post it. Try to be consistent. You can also use templates. You can repost graphics. So some share things off somebody else's page is going to be activity on your page. So lots of things like that. Get your voice out there so people know that you exist. I think that's important.
I mean, and talk to other businesses in your area. I think that people forget that, Amazon or Walmart and that kind of stuff, they didn't start the size that they are. And not that we're ever going to get to like, multi-billionaires in a single technician clinic, but I think that there is their brand grew with them. But it was whomever they had in that space that gave them an opportunity to test their product, like how they showed up. But a lot of times, the people you're working with and around, they are your voice. So like being local in that representation. If you want to have, a wax melt at your office, okay, and that's the scent of your office all the time. And when I say I'm saying wax melt because they're so like benign, but like, if you want to keep something simple, like find somebody local. Today we have a florist literally 2 doors down from me, and my doc's out of town and they have a weekly flower delivery. Well, guess who gets to have a weekly flower delivery for the next 2 weeks? I do. And that's something that shows up and people are like, oh, those are beautiful. And like, it makes you just feel like really good. And I mean, like Sandy and I know this, I have an obsession with plants and flowers and that kind of stuff, but being able to see something beautiful like that, people are like, oh, wow, there's like fresh flowers here. Or there is like, and you could be like, oh, this is from a local person. Here's their card. And like, it's that connections and that kind of stuff. I think that helps you with your visibility. I think it helps you with your marketing. I think it helps you with that brand in the sense of like, your brand is small businesses make a big difference.
people in your neighborhood. Yeah, because I mean, you're trying to get clients, so it doesn't make sense for you to advertise to people 3 counties over, or the next state, so you really have to think about what your radius is too. So if you do choose to do Facebook ads or Instagram ads or anything like that, think about the target market, because you can't go too far. It doesn't really make sense since you're not going to be, servicing somebody for over 100 miles away. Referral programs, you kind of touched a little bit about that, are a great thing. So I've never really I've always done packages and gift cards. So that's been kind of my go-to when it came to marketing. I never really did referral. Did you ever offer something like that?
Yeah, I did the 2020 and I still do it. I'm not good about I'm so bad about marketing it. Okay, so I have a 2020 referral program that basically, when you refer somebody into me, you get $20 as a thank you. Okay. And then when they show up for their second appointment, not their consult, but their second appointment, they get a $20 off. And the reason I did this is to thank both sides, because you trusted your friend with their knowledge to come back in, and you trusted me based on the knowledge I gave you during that consult, that I do want to give you this, right? On the friend side, the greatest gift you will ever have is somebody who is happy with the work, telling other people to go and get that work. And so that was a big help for me.
So, I mean, all of that's great. And I definitely think I kind of want to reemphasize that when it comes to your websites, please have an easy to use site. I think that you should have a homepage, about you page, ditch the stock photos. Like we talked about, they're just not good, unless it's something like you just want an ocean photo in the background, but that's not going to be your main focus image. If you're using something like, here's electrolysis and there's an image next to it, make sure that it's relevant. And if it's not, maybe try to stage it. It doesn't have to be an overly complicated process, but people do want to see you. So maybe you can have on the About You page, you could have a photo of you or your office or something like this. And so it goes a long way, I think, for establishing trust when people can see who they're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, professional doesn't mean it's cold. It means because sometimes people think it's very clinical, and it's
no,
you could be very clinical and be friendly. Both can exist. I definitely think you need to be inviting.
No, professionalism to me shows that somebody can trust you because you know what you're talking about and you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's what professionalism is. So, so you just, I think it's great.
So I'm glad that we revisited this. I was we have so much more to talk about. And I know that sometimes we revisit some of these things because somebody pops back in and gives us just a little bit more of that question, but we appreciate you guys. One in the chat, that was pretty cool. There was 2 things that we needed to cover in the chat. So one at the very beginning, can you go over, Joanie, the layers of your bed when you have a second?
I did post that back in the community. So if you go and look at that, or actually it's in the discussion posts for this, which everybody has access to. But
there was another one that we'll go over later on about the differences in prices between insurance versus cash paid.
Yeah.
So I'll put that. I know that we have a kind of a lineup of questions, but it might not be in the next time we meet, but it'll be in a couple of times out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to copy and paste that before I forget.
Okay.
All right. Well, everybody, until next week.
Yes. Thank you so much again for joining us today.
Yeah.
This was such a great chat. We know running a business isn't always glamorous, but when you get the pieces in place, it's so empowering.
You do not have to do everything at once. Just keep showing up, keep learning, and charge what your work is worth.
And if you love this episode, leave us a review, share it with your Electrology friends, or tag us on Instagram with your favorite takeaway.
And if you're still figuring it all out, you're doing better than you think.
Thanks for listening to Electrolysis Unplugged with Joanie and Stephanie.
We'll see you next time, same same place.